So, Gary,
Yeah, Chris?
you played Doom?
Not really.
Well, that is just a crying shame, sir. So we were playing Doom. It's Chris,
And Gary.
and yeah, we're playing Doom. I'm gonna play this on the Hurt Me Plenty difficulty. I have beaten this game on Nightmare. I don't know how I did that. I have beaten it on Nightmare, so like, I like to think that I'm not terrible at it. But we're just gonna be kind of hanging out and having a good time and playing it really casually here. So I'm just gonna play this on the second difficulty. So I figured that we would play some good old-fashioned Doom, or I guess new-fashioned because this is the new Doom. And we'll be discussing shooters in this video, just all kinds of shooters, because I think Gary and I both really, really like a whole library of different first-person shooters, and yeah, we'll just go from there. So, Gary, how familiar are you with like id Software and the whole like Doom legacy?
I'm pretty familiar with the legacy. I haven't really played the games per se. I played Rage, which, that's their newest original property, and that game was amazing, and I really hope they come out with a sequel to it.
Yeah, I actually really like Rage a lot. It apparently, a lot of critics just kind of found it okay. I thought it was pretty solid. I thought that it had really decent pacing. My only major complaint with Rage was that it just ended way too quickly.
Yeah,
You know
very
what I mean?
abrupt ending. And
Yeah. Like, I remember getting through, because we had it on the 360, I remember getting through the first disc, and it was like, all right, move on to second disc. And I was like, oh, I've already been playing it for like 20 hours, so this game is going to be super long. Yeah, it wasn't really the case, because the second disc was like 6 hours.
Yeah. No, I remember that was a bit disappointing also.
Yeah. But Rage was actually okay. I liked the sort of Mad Max, dystopian, future post-apocalyptic thing, and mechanically pretty solid. Yeah, like I said, my only complaint was that it just felt kind of short.
One thing I really liked was you always ended up back at the beginning of each area in kind of a unique way, so that all the missions you were kind of coming full circle.
Mm-hmm.
And it was always interesting that that door you walked by that you didn't even think anything of, it didn't open.
Yeah.
And then that's where you burst out to exit the level.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And I think that was the reason why it felt super short, was because I remember very clearly there was like a sequence, there was some sort of part down in the sewers near the end of the, or like near the new area that you found by, playing the second half of the game or whatever.
Yeah.
That was like closed off, and you're like, oh, you're going to reach this area later. Nope, never comes
And
up
I bet
again.
they did intend for it,
Yeah.
but, budget and stuff.
Well, one thing that I do know is that in the past, id has always taken their time with their games. Before they were acquired by Bethesda and ZeniMax, they released games on their own schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Like Doom 3 was delayed a whole bunch, actually. It took it several years for it to come out.
Yeah.
And after they got acquired by Bethesda and ZeniMax, they were probably just like, no, there's no more of that. Here's your schedule. You need to release this game.
Yeah.
So that's probably part of it, was that they wanted to do more with Rage, but then they were like, no, you need to meet this deadline.
Yeah, because, even if they decided from a story perspective that it didn't work, they would have taken that out if they had done it organically.
Right.
But one other thing I liked is by having all the missions kind of naturally end right at the beginning of a mission, you didn't have to do those, the screen cuts to black and you're back at the beginning, and you also didn't have to backtrack to the mission, which...
Yeah.
Those are always you got to pick one or the other, but Rage found this way to avoid that.
Yeah. It had a really, really nice, because I remember those sort of levels, because it was an open world game, but you could find sort of areas basically, and missions were basically delegated to those sort of areas.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they made it so that you would have to get your way back to the beginning, obviously, because it was like an open world game, but whoa. Excuse me. There we go. But yeah, they didn't want to just make it so that you had to play all the way back through the game. They were like, all right, well, let's just put a zip line, at the very end that brings you back to the beginning, etc.
Yeah, and in a lot of them it was handy because you didn't have to retrace the entire area if you missed a collectible.
Right, yeah.
So it made it more enjoyable and less frustrating.
Right.
So they did a lot of little things that made it a more enjoyable experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so at the end of it, I would say that Rage was actually a pretty solid game, and I'm glad to have played it, and I would be interested in playing more in the franchise. I know that they've said that they plan to make more Rage games at some point. I think that specifically, I don't remember the CEO of it or whomever said, we plan to revisit the Rage universe at some point, but no plans currently. I mean, part of it was because they were making Doom at that point.
Yeah.
So that's why that was going on.
I'm always skeptical when I hear that from developers.
Yeah,
one of my all-time favorite games, which it's a third-person shooter, so I'm not going to get into it, but we
can talk about shooters here. Let's just talk about shooters.
All right. So Freedom Fighters, it's a really interesting third-person shooter. It's basically Red Dawn, but in New York instead of wherever Red Dawn is.
Was it Washington, D.C.?
No, it was out in the country, somewhere out west. I think Colorado, maybe.
Okay.
But it's basically the same plot as Red Dawn, and clearly set up for a sequel at the end of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And a year or two after the game, they're like, yeah, it's on our plans.
Yeah.
Nothing ever came of it. Not even an official. Yeah, we're not going to do it. It's just hanging out there.
Well, part of that is that I guess. Do you know the studio who made it?
I think it was Take-Two.
Are they still around?
I honestly don't know.
Because I know that part of that is that there are some studios who will make games and they'll just be like closed off. Like another good example is Raven. They're technically still around, Raven Studios or Raven Software. So they were kind of like a sister company to id for a while. Actually, they released Heretic on the original Doom engine. They released the new Wolfenstein game from like a few years ago, not the New Order, but the one before that, which was pretty generic and forgettable, but was by no means a bad game. They made that Singularity game. They made Quake 4. They've got good games under their belt. But
Singularity is a game that I keep meaning to play and just never find the time.
Yeah, they've got good games under their belts, and they're good at what they did, but they just didn't really sell that well. And now,
it was actually IO that made Freedom Fighters.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
but Raven eventually got acquired by, I think they were already acquired by Activision, who published them. But anyway, Raven doesn't front run anything anymore. Apparently, when you look at their page, all they really do is just assist in multiplayer assets for Call of Duty games. That's all that they do anymore. So they don't make their own games anymore, which is kind of a bummer.
Yeah, it's a steady paycheck.
Yeah,
I guess, but it is disappointing when these studios that were creative have gone away from that.
Right. But
I guess if you're out of ideas, you're out of ideas.
Yeah. Anyway, we've touched on id games and all that, but there is one big id legacy that I feel like we have not touched on yet, but is still pretty noteworthy, and that's Quake. I mentioned Quake 4 a second ago there. Now you haven't played any Quake games, right?
No.
That's a shame because the first 2 and 4 are pretty good. I can't even really mention 3 because 3 was a multiplayer only game. Now it was pretty good. It kind of gave birth to the Arena first-person shooter, multiplayer game. It's pretty notoriously seen as one of the best multiplayer shooter games on the PC ever made, which is cool. But I don't really care about that. And then obviously Quake was a big thing. Quake 2 was a big thing. Quake 4 is, I think, the one that you would like the most because it feels the most the most appropriate analogy I could make for it is that it feels like Gears of War. It's you on an alien planet, and it's you and a bunch of Marines against a bunch of horrible aliens and all that. And Quake 4 was actually a pretty solid game that I don't know if it was a huge success, but I hope that it succeeded because it was pretty well done.
Yeah. Well, and gotta talk a little bit about Wolfenstein also.
Oh yeah, Wolfenstein. Yeah.
I mean, I've not played any of the other games besides the new one, a new order.
The New Order.
The New Order.
Yeah.
Which was fantastic.
Yeah, I love the New Order.
A great melding of modern first-person shooter design with old school design.
Yeah. I think that the thing that the New Order did was that they decided we're going to try to revive the classic first-person shooter formula. So that's why you have, health. That's why you have, entire arsenals at your disposal. It's all level-based, and there are secret passageways and collectibles and that kind of thing. And that's just something that you don't really get anymore with a lot of shooters. So I think that Wolfenstein The New Order kind of started it, and I think it was kind of refined and perfected here with Doom.
Yeah. And then, obviously, we got to touch base on the new Wolfenstein that's coming out.
Ooh, yeah, I'm really looking forward to that.
Did Wolfenstein just did Wolfenstein build a foundation for Doom, and are they going to be able to continue that momentum to make an even better game with the new Wolfenstein?
From what I have been able to tell, the new Wolfenstein game, the new Colossus is what it's called.
Yes.
It is mechanically the same as the first game, just from the gameplay that I've seen and all that.
So it's not going to be this fast-paced, just killing.
No,
this.
no. It's going to be more about the narrative and all that, which is honestly fine because that's the thing that made Wolfenstein stand out was the fact that it actually had an engaging story and good characters.
All right, now which one is more satisfying, killing demons or killing Nazis?
Oh man.
I gotta say the Nazis because you can't. The demons were born that way. You can't blame them. You can blame the Nazis.
That's a good point. Like, Nazis made the conscious decision to be Nazis, so when you're shoving a knife down, into their neck and then giving them a swirly at the same time, it's pretty satisfying.
Yeah. Demon's just being a demon.
Yeah. Now, demons are still inherently evil, malevolent things.
We gotta deal with them, but we don't hate them for being what they are.
Right. Well, except for the Doomslayer, because this guy is, like, one of the angriest game protagonists, like, since Kratos from God of War. No, like, for real, though. He's so angry all the time.
So is this like a retro room that you're...
Oh, yeah, this is a secret area. So all of the levels all have, levers that you can find that open up these classic things here. And they're just nice little homages to, the original game. Like, this is actually a segment from the first map of Doom 2. Well, anyway, every level has a secret area like that, and the cool thing about it is that once you actually find it, you can go back to the menu and you can actually play the full level from the original game.
Oh, that's cool, because
Yeah.
It's actually interesting to note, because Rage did something similar, where there was a secret room inspired by Wolfenstein, Quake, and Doom, and then in Wolfenstein The New Order, they had...
The Nightmares.
Where you could play... I don't know if they were actually original Wolfenstein levels, or they were just inspired by.
In the New Order, it was just one level, and it was the first level of the game. It was E1 M1 of Wolfenstein 3D.
Okay, and then in the DLC for A New Order, there were 8 levels. And I don't know if those were existing.
Yes, those were remade maps also.
Okay.
Now, I guess just kind of like for semantics-wise, it wasn't technically DLC. It was actually its own standalone game. Like, you didn't need to play...
it started off as DLC and then...
I don't know about that. I mean, maybe. I guess. I honestly don't know. But it was its own thing. It was, as soon as it was announced, it was, like, made clear that, like, this is not DLC. It's a standalone game. You just buy it for $20, even if you've never played, the New Order. Which was cool, because it takes place before, the New Order. And, you don't need to have played the New Order in order to appreciate it.
No, I mean, I think they did officially list it as DLC. They did the same thing with Undead Nightmare for Red Dead Redemption.
Oh, really?
It was its own standalone game, even sold as a disc, but they still call it DLC.
Okay.
But I might be wrong on that.
Yeah, I remember one of the first games on the PS4 to do that was the that Infamous game.
Mm-hmm.
They made Infamous Second Son, and then they followed it up with Infamous First Light. I played a little bit of Second Son. It was okay. I didn't really care for it that much, so I didn't play First Light at all.
Yeah, I downloaded it as like the free title, then never played it.
Yeah. I think it was actually like one of the first free games for the PS4 that I got when I got.
Yeah, we both got our PS4s at the same time. It was the first game that we got
PS
for
Plus.
free.
Oh, it was that one and Injustice, like the first Injustice.
Yeah, and I never was any good at Injustice. I'm not good at fighting games.
Yeah,
they're mean to me.
Yeah.
Right. So that kind of covers all the id properties, I think, fairly well. Like,
yeah, relatively. I love Doom.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you are probably watching this video because of all of the Doom videos on my channel, and I thank you for watching those.
Now, it's a shame they couldn't get The Rock to do like a voice of one of the demons. I'm just saying.
Well, I don't think the Doom movie was really heralded as a success.
It had one of the coolest sequences in any movie ever, though. And that's when they go first person.
Yeah. And that's when Hardcore Henry decided, why don't we just make a whole movie out of that?
Yeah, which I still need to see, but...
It was okay. Well, okay, I saw the first, like, half of it. But I was not able to finish it. Not because I didn't want to, but just because like other things came up. But it was all right.
But yeah, to kind of go into some other games, a game I know we both love is Bioshock.
Ooh, yeah, Bioshock has a legacy.
It was earth-shattering at the time. Like, I couldn't believe what I was watching, and one of the few games to actually ever scare me, or I guess startle me.
Yeah. It had some good jump scares. I think one of my favorite. Honestly, I think it's probably my favorite moment in Bioshock. Oh no, man,
There's so many good
Yeah, now that I'm
ones.
thinking about it, there are like 3 or 4. So the first one that I really liked was I think it was the dentist's office.
Yes.
Where you walk into the room and fog just fills the whole room. And there's a gurney in the middle of the room, and then after the fog like lifts, there's a body on the gurney. And you're like, excuse me? But like it's a dead body, it's not like a person. So you just kind of ignore it and you move on. Well, there's one of, I forget what they're called, not plasmids, but tonics. Yeah, there was a tonic in the corner of the room, and you pick it up and you're like, oh, neat. And then, like fog all of a sudden falls over you and you're like, oh, wait, what? And then it goes away and everything seems normal. Okay. And then you turn around and there's a dude just in your face. And you're just like, ah! That was a really good one.
My personal favorite was when you go into the room and you can see the shadow of a guy, like he's butchering somebody.
I know where you're going.
And then when you go around, he's gone.
Yeah.
Then you gather up your stuff, you leave the room, but he jumps out of like a meat locker.
Yeah.
Right at you.
Yeah,
right in your face.
Yeah, there was a meat locker or whatever, like in between the two areas.
Yeah.
So, you get around the corner and he's not there and you're like, okay, and you're waiting. And then it was another thing where they bait you into getting a tonic. And you're like, sweet! And then you try to leave the room and he just busts out. The third one that I really liked was the first time you found one of the Houdini splicers.
Mm-hmm.
You remember those?
Yeah.
And you saw him, like, as you were coming into a room, and he'd be like, hey, follow me! And you would be like, no, I don't want to. But you had to. So you would follow him, and it was another thing, I think, where it wasn't, instead of a tonic, I think it was a key or something. But you could find a key, and when you turned back around, he would just be like, hello, and then teleport away. And then you had to, like, fight him. But it was just another, like, thing where, he kind of snuck up on you and was there when you turned back around.
Yeah. And, I mean, there's so many little moments like that in that game, especially in the first half, when you're still, like, kind of underpowered. You feel underpowered, per se. When in the later game, you've got all the weapons, and you kind of feel like you can just handle anything.
Yeah, I think that it is fair to say that Bioshock is not remembered for the second half of the game.
Yeah, it's kind of like Full Metal Jacket. Everyone remembers it for the first half.
Yeah. I don't know if the difference is as jarring as Full Metal Jacket is, because like Full Metal Jacket is almost like 2 movies in one.
Yeah.
Whereas Bioshock, like,
it's just a different tone.
it's a difference in quality.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just
Well, they stopped with the scares. Like, there was nothing really in the second half of the game.
Yeah,
that...
it started to get away from horror and just started to get into more generic action.
Mm-hmm.
I do remember... obviously, though, like, Sandra Cohen in Fort Frolic, that's probably the best part of the whole game.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
The crazy artist. Definitely super good there.
Mm-hmm.
But, when the game just stops being horror and just starts being, like, normal shooter stuff, it's kind of like, I don't really care that much.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it was still fine. Like, I obviously still beat Bioshock, but, like, the number of times that I have started Bioshock is much greater than the number of times I have finished Bioshock, and that should say something.
Once I got kind of to Arcadia, I'd kind of lose interest.
Yeah.
And then, like, 3 months later, I'd be like, oh, I'm just going to start over.
Well, in the past when I haven't played it in a while, but, like, in the past when I had done Fort Frolic, I'd be like, okay, moving on.
Yeah. But, yeah, so,
Did you play a lot of 2 or Infinite?
I started 2, and I really just couldn't get into I don't know, I just couldn't get into it for whatever reason.
Yeah.
It didn't have that same, like, grab my attention that the first one had, and I never really played Infinite. I heard some negative things about the quality.
So, Infinite is such a hard thing for me to talk about because, like, it's not objectively a bad game. I just didn't care about it. And I honestly don't know why. Something about it, like... And I played it a lot. I got really far into the game, but I never beat it. I played collectively maybe 6 to 8 hours of it, like a lot. And I was just like, I'm not feeling this. And I was getting frustrated. Like I was only playing it. Well, I might have been playing it on hard. I don't remember, but I remember getting killed a lot, and I remember just getting really frustrated. And I remember too. The levels were so like open-ended and all that, and there was a lot of just running around, scrounging for every single nook and cranny, looking at every single trash can, and barely finding anything. I mean, like, you still had to do it because you had to like find as many things as you can, but it just got like tiresome and exhausting, and it just got to the point where I got burned out on it.
Yeah, no, I can definitely understand that. But you know, another game we really should have to definitely talk about, considering, you know, I don't think any game was more inspired by Doom that outside of id than Halo.
Halo, yeah, okay.
Space Marine.
Halo is totally, and I'm not a Halo fan, but I will totally acknowledge the legacy that Halo has. Halo, I wouldn't say popularized console-based first-person shooters, but really, really made it a big thing. You know, like, before then you had some first-person shooters on the PlayStation and, like, the Nintendo 64, like GoldenEye and Perfect Dark, but Halo was definitely the one that was like, no, this is like the peak right now. And it set the standard. It really did. There were so many things about Halo that just kind of...
Well, and it came at the right time. Like, the technology for online play had come about.
Yeah.
You know, the control finally had enough buttons for you to really make a person do what you wanted them to do.
Yeah.
And so I think, you know, the first great first even above average first-person shooter on that generation was going to be popular basically because of lack of options. But that's not to say that Halo was not a defining game.
Yeah.
But I think it hasn't aged as well as some people would try to argue.
It hasn't aged badly. I wouldn't say that it's aged as badly as, say, Half-Life.
No.
Have you played Half-Life?
I started it, but it had aged badly.
It's pretty generic. It was one of the games that kind of set the standard for like constant, you know, missions. It didn't have individual missions. It was just like a single story, which was kind of similar to how BioShock was. And it was kind of one of the first games to actually do that, because before that you had, you know, Quake, but even Quake was still level based. You know, even Quake had like a score screen at the end of each level, and Half-Life was one of the first games to just not do that. You know, it had just a single narrative, which was cool and revolutionary for the time. But like the guns in Half-Life, they weren't very memorable. There were virtually no characters.
Yeah.
Now it had a good atmosphere, and Gordon Freeman got you know, more characterized in the second one. But like the first Halo is, I don't know, it's not that great. It's good. It's a good game. It was great for the time. But like,
yeah, like I said, I think any first-person shooter that, you know, could just not be bad was going to become popular simply because there were no others.
Yeah,
and the
sure.
technology was there.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Like, if Call of Duty had released sooner, I think it would have been the blockbuster success sooner than it was.
Right, I would agree with that. So you do like Halo quite a bit, right? Like, you've played most of the Halo games. You've played all of them, right?
I think I have played all of them except ODST. Well,
what a perfect segue then into one-word breakdowns.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to start with the first Halo game. Halo.
Important.
Okay. Halo 2.
Mistakes.
Halo 3.
Satisfying.
All right. And then I guess after that was ODST, but you said you didn't play that, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
so
fair enough. We'll skip over that. Then was it Halo... No, it was Halo Reach after that.
Halo Reach.
Halo Reach.
Best.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And I will touch on that more later.
And Halo 4.
Disappointing.
Okay. And Halo 5, right?
Awful.
Oh, strong
On
word.
a number of different levels.
Strong word, sir. All right. But yeah, so you say that Reach is your, well, not even your favorite, but just the best. Would you
Yeah.
like to elaborate on that?
I think it's the best because they took the systems they had in
I'm out of shells.
in 3, the engines and the control schemes, which had really been perfected, but they were able to simplify. The story necessitated them to simplify the number of enemies. I think the number of enemies had gotten out of control,
Yeah?
and based on where you were, you didn't run into some of the less fun ones.
Yeah.
So balance became, you no longer had the story necessitating certain, enemies showing up, and so the balance kind of restored itself that they had in the first few levels of the original Halo.
Okay.
You had different enemy types and they complement each other well, but then for story reasons they kept adding new ones.
Okay.
But because of the story of Reach, you only had these certain ones.
Okay.
And so you had this balance, and then you also had a team of, Spartans, and they were all distinct and different. They're your standard archetypes. Strong leader.
Right. Kind of two-dimensional.
Yeah, two-dimensional, but when you put all 6 of them together, or the 5 that you interact with together, they form a very important, dynamic to actually necessitate caring about them. You actually cared about these characters, whereas in the other Halo games, generic Marine that you don't care if he gets shot.
Yeah.
But in Halo Reach, all of them die, and all of them you're like...
Oh, I guess spoiler alert. But, honestly, anyone who wants to play Halo Reach has played it
the
by now.
beginning of Halo shows the character's helmet, abandoned on the ground. Clearly, okay, he's dead.
Well, and also, don't they reference Reach in, the first couple of games, too? Talking about how it was, the turning point of the war, or, some sort of massacre for the Marines or something?
Reach was kind of like the second Earth. It was, the base of the military that was where the defense of Earth was taking place so that they couldn't trace back, kind of, to Earth.
Okay.
It was there to shield Earth from as much damage as possible. Because they've been in the war for 30 years. They're clearly losing. It's not going well. And then when Reach did fall, and the beginning of the first game, they've just ran from the loss of Reach.
Okay.
And on Reach, they discovered the coordinates for the Halo.
Okay.
And Cortana led them there so that they could potentially end the war.
Okay.
So it helped explain how they happened to stumble upon the Halo.
Okay.
But I think just from a story and a gameplay perspective, they took what was great about the first game, which was, the balance in the enemies, and then they were able to refine the controls, and then they did a better job of storytelling because they weren't pigeonholed by the fact that, Master Chief is this paragon of duty that kind of limits you.
I kind of felt and I really can't say this too strongly because again I've played very little Halo. I've played collectively maybe 5 or 6 hours of the first game. It wasn't really my thing. I mean, not to trash talk Halo or nothing like that, but it just wasn't for me. But Master Chief just kind of struck me as a little thin, a little one-dimensional.
Well, they said that's intentional because they want you to feel like you're the Master Chief, but that's great for a game. But after 5 games, he's got to be more than just a guy who fulfills his duty.
Yeah, and you've got to find ways to characterize him, beyond, simple things. I would say that one of the best ways to kind of have your character act as a conduit of the player is the Doomslayer right here, because he's hard as heck. He is just awesome. And it's just little tiny nuances and things like that throughout the game that just make you go this guy is the strongest. He is the most angry, and he is the hardest of the hardcore.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, they do characterize Master Chief a little bit, but just not enough for 5 games.
Yeah.
And it's really kind of disappointing in 5 is you only play 3 missions as him.
Oh, yeah, so you said that 5 was just awful.
And
elaborate on that.
The story goes to crap, basically. You don't play as Master Chief, even though,
he's still on the cover, right?
Yeah, he's the guy.
Yeah.
That's supposed to be his story.
Right.
And they take Cortana and make her the bad guy. And then, worst of all, they kind of pull a...
Wait a second. Spoilers. Didn't Cortana die in the 4th one?
Yeah. she dies in the fourth one, but then she comes back as like a bad guy. And I can't remember what her whole evil plan is, but and then they kind of did a Matrix where the 4 in this case would be 1, where it was its kind of own standalone story, but then 5 and 6 are like back to back. And then 5 also suffered from the fact that you had to read some of the Halo novels or graphic novels or something to truly understand what was going on.
Yeah, I'm not okay with that.
Like the first mission of the game, you're killing some guy that clearly there's a backstory that they don't bother giving you in the game.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's fundamentally flawed on a number of storytelling levels, and just from a gameplay perspective, like I don't care about this other character that I'm playing 10 missions as.
Yeah.
I don't. And then they had a boss that you fought several times that just wasn't fun at all.
I've heard that complaint multiple times.
Like, I can't remember what he was called, but you fight him at least 5 or 6 times. Sometimes there's multiple of him, and he wasn't fun the first time.
Yeah. I've heard that same complaint actually,
Yeah.
from other friends, but yeah, like I said, I'm not a Halo person, so I can't really elaborate on any of those points. But I will defer to your expertise.
All right, well, we should move on. Just, we've done enough time on Halo to a series that, has been dear and dear to both of our hearts. Call of Duty.
For better or for worse.
At one time or another, we have different opinions on some of the games, but Call of Duty.
Yeah, well, and for better or for worse, it has a, like, oh, look at this.
Aww. That's awesome.
That's the only one that he does that to, actually, and that's because that one has the same color scheme as him, basically.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, you can find those dolls throughout the game, but he just kind of picks them up and looks at them, and that's the only one that he actually fist bumps. Yeah, it's cute. But anyway, yeah, so Call of Duty is a staple of shooters. Whether people want to admit it or not, it is.
Yeah.
So let's talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to skip some of the earlier ones because I didn't play. I tried Big Red 1, but that was on the PS2, which was not a console designed for shooters at all.
I would say, I think it's fair to argue that Call of Duty did not become a mainstream franchise until the first Modern Warfare.
I would agree completely. It was a series they released because it made a little bit of money.
Yeah, well,
and it was a launch title for the Xbox, and I think they thought 3 was going to be their breakout hit. And it really wasn't.
I remember that. I kind of remember. Well, the thing was, remember back then, back when the first couple of Call of Duty games were games, Medal of Honor was still a series.
Yeah.
Everybody was still in a Medal of Honor, and I think that I think it was around 2002 that Medal of Honor Frontline had come out, and that was actually pretty successful. So that was in the middle of Call of Duty still trying to establish its name.
Yeah. But yeah, I think like I said, 3 was a release title for the Xbox 360, and it was actually a really good game. It developed a lot of core mechanics they would use for Modern Warfare, but I think they finally realized, okay, the problem isn't our engine or our ideas. There's World War II exhaustion.
Yeah, that was around the time that...
And so they reinvented the industry with Modern Warfare, and they took off.
Yeah, I remember it was the first Modern Warfare. There was a big deal that it was in modern times.
Yeah.
And that was the first game to really do that. So, yeah, Call of Duty as a franchise I got into it around COD 4. And I played pretty much every single one up to a certain point, but I think I stopped at the second Black Ops game. I think was the last one that I played.
I can't remember. That came out before or after Ghosts, but Ghosts was the last one chronologically that I played. But I
believe it came out a year before Ghosts.
Okay, so Ghosts was the last one I played. So I played from Modern Warfare 4, or Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, and then up through Ghosts.
Right.
And then you stopped a year before I did.
Okay.
Or yeah, because I think it was Ghosts, then Black Ops 3, which looked horrible.
I didn't even play Black Ops 3, so I don't.
It just looked bad. I didn't even give it a chance.
Yeah. So which one is your favorite?
Modern Warfare.
Just the first one?
Yeah, the story. I actually really like Modern Warfare 2's multiplayer.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that the Call of Duty games are definitely good examples of games that can have a pretty stark difference between gameplay and like single player and multiplayer. Like people there are people who play Call of Duty games purely for the multiplayer, and they don't even load the single player screen. Like, I had a friend who was really into Call of Duty, and he played it a lot, but like he never played the campaigns for any of them. He just played the multiplayer. And I don't remember which one it was. I need a shotgun. Hold on. I think it was Black Ops 2. Yeah, because it was in between, or maybe it was Black Ops 3. Because it was in between, like, the era of PS4 and, like, PS3, that they released it on the previous generation, like the PS3 and the Xbox 360, and the game was just multiplayer. There wasn't even a single-player component to go with it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I think it was Black Ops 3.
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
Might have been Ghosts?
No, Ghosts.
It wasn't Ghosts?
Okay. Maybe Advanced Warfare or whatever that one was.
I think it was before Advanced Warfare.
So yeah, I think it'd be Black Ops 3 then.
Did I find everything? I did. Okay, sweet.
But,
yeah, so overall, the first one is your favorite. Okay, how about let's break it down then? Like, single-player-wise, which one, your favorite is still the first one?
yeah.
Multiplayer-wise, you said the second Modern Warfare was your favorite? I would say that my favorite single-player one is probably also 4. But honestly, like, nowadays, I don't really care about the single-player components of Call of Duty games anymore. The last one that I played was Black Ops 2. And I actually beat that one, and it wasn't bad, but, I don't know, I just kind of moved on. But multiplayer-wise, the first Black Ops was the most perfect, and I don't understand why they ruined everything about it with any of the next games, because it made no sense to me. Like, the COD point system that they had for the first Black Ops was genius. Like, it was great because you had access to all of the perks, and you basically just got experience points that you would spend on unlocking individual perks.
You created the character you wanted earlier, and then bought extras that you might use.
Exactly. You got everything that you wanted, like, in the first, like, few levels that you had to do in order to get, like, perks and all that, instead of having to be, like, level 45 to get, you know, Ghost or whatever this perk is. You know what I mean? Like, that was just really frustrating, and that's why I never really played much of the first 2 Modern Warfare games, multiplayer-wise. Like, I went through the first, like, Prestige, and I think I even started the second Prestige. But, Black Ops 1, I made it to, like, the 11th Prestige.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I played it a lot.
Yeah.
It was great. I loved it. And the first Black Ops 2 was also very much a run-and-gun multiplayer experience. There wasn't really a lot of room for snipers. Like, sniping wasn't very powerful in the game, and there weren't really a lot of camp spots. Like, the first Black Ops was the pinnacle for me. So when Black Ops 2 came out, I was kind of excited for it, and I played it, and I was like, I don't really like this. Oh, man, this is not working out nearly as well. Now, I was able to get kind of like a, you know, set of perks and, you know, upgrades and weapons to, like, kind of be able to do what I was wanting to do in the first Black Ops, and I was like, alright, well, now I'm kind of enjoying myself. But then I thought, wait, all I'm doing is trying to play this like it's the first Black Ops. I might as well just play the first Black Ops. So that's what I did.
Yeah.
I just stopped playing it.
Yeah, and then, for
oh my
me...
God, hurry up.
You know, Ghost was the kind of in for me, although I played it after, like, a couple more Call of Duties come out. I finally got around to playing Ghost. I got it cheap somewhere. And I could not understand the hatred for it, because it really was pretty well hated by people.
Yeah.
And as soon as I beat the game, I understood, because the ending is so horrible that you feel like you shouldn't even beat it at all.
I know nothing about it. Why don't you elaborate on that then? Tell me about Ghosts and what the ending means and why it's awful.
Alright, so the whole setup is it's an alternate history where the South America has something called the Federation. And them and the United States don't get along, but the United States kind of can protect themselves because they have orbital weapons platforms.
Okay.
Well, they also have secret, you know, special forces named Ghosts. Well, the Federation captures one, they turn him, and, you know, he helps them take the orbital weapons platform, attack the United States with it. You know, drama ensues, long war. You and your brother turn out to be the sons of a ghost.
Son of a ghost.
And then he recruits you, even though he's never told you, even though you've been in a war for 10 years, whatever. And finally, at the end of the game, is the guy that they had got to betray the United States. You kill him, you're feeling good, you save the United States, you're good. Then somehow these 2 trained guys get taken out by the guy they just shot in the gut.
Oh.
And he kidnaps your brother. And it's like, okay. So he big burly man just taken out by a guy with a bullet in his gut. I get the guy's supposed to be tough, but really,
Yeah.
My character just basically single-handedly defeated a continent, and then one dude takes him out. Okay.
Right.
And then the game ends with that, and I was like, no, like if you want to like do that at the beginning of a second game, okay. Mm-hmm. But you got to have some catharsis. You got to have a win at the end of the game.
Yeah.
And you just feel like you lost like everything at that point.
Well, would you say that maybe the feeling of like sometimes you just lose was maybe the intention? I mean, I guess I don't know. I haven't played the game, so
maybe. But I mean, it's not how a Call of Duty game's supposed to end.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I guess it depends on the genre.
Because like a Dead Space game ending.
Yeah, it's a horror. It's the horror genre.
Yeah.
Sometimes in horror you just lose. That's just how it goes.
Yeah, like I said, like the story, if that's what you want to do with it, fine. But have that be the beginning of the second game. And then continue on from there.
Yeah, fair enough.
Like, it should have been the brothers resting on the beach, like, what was our last day on the beach? I don't know. Credits.
Yeah.
And then the beginning of the game could be the guy coming out of the water like, you mother.
Right, yeah.
But, so we probably should move on so we get into all the discussions we want to.
Yeah, there's so many things
about
shooters.
I think we've done the big series so far, so maybe we can just touch on some games.
Yeah, sure. So, like,
a shooter game I really like that, they were trying to develop into its own property and it didn't work out. Time Shift.
I've heard about that game, but I don't really know anything about that, so tell me about that.
It was a game where you had a suit that would allow you to pause, slow down, or reverse time.
So it's Prince of Persia, but with a gun.
Possibly. I never played that. But it was really interesting because, you'd see a grenade get thrown, and you could reverse time and get away before the guy threw it.
Okay.
Or, you could kill him before he threw it.
Okay.
And, there are also puzzle aspects. Like, you could only get through stuff. You do a lot of time in, like, a foundry. And one way you get through the assembly line in the foundry is you actually reverse time through. So instead of hot metal pouring down on you, it's falling up, essentially.
Oh, that's clever. Okay.
Yeah, and so they were kind of like Portal-esque games, which we're going to have to touch on Portal, obviously. But, and I think it suffered from the lack of characterization. Like,
When did this game come out? Like, what
2007-ish? It was Xbox 360 title.
Oh, really? It was that late?
Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
So, yeah, it was actually dated graphically at that time. Like, I think it had been in development so long that they'd kind of fallen behind on that. Mm-hmm. And there weren't really dynamic, interesting characters.
Really?
And I think it suffered from that.
Yeah,
it had some really cool commercials, but
I feel like around the mid 2000s was when gamers started expecting a little bit more story wise from their games.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It wasn't like the 90s where you either had good gameplay or you had a good story. You couldn't really have both. Well, it got to the point in like the early to mid 2000s where all of a sudden you could have both. So if a game was like mechanically solid, but like you didn't care about anything that was going on. Yeah, there wasn't a lot of reason to play it.
Yeah, and one thing, graphically, things that should have been 3D structures were actually just painted on textures.
Oh, really?
And, yeah, I mean, 2007 was too late for that.
Yeah.
People expected 3D objects.
Yeah.
So I think if the game was released in, like, 2004 on the original Xbox, maybe it would have been the beginning of a great series.
Yeah.
And the second game would have really built off what they had done with the first.
Yeah, fair enough.
But, so, Portal. Mentioned that earlier. But
yeah, I really, really admire the legacy of Portal. I really, really love the streamlined simplicity of the first Portal quite a bit. I mean, basically, it was it was a side project. It wasn't meant to be like its own game. I am kind of in a minority of people who don't really like Portal 2. And that is going to be a segue into unpopular opinions.
Okay.
I've already said it. I don't really like Portal 2 that much. Now, it's fine. It's a decent game, but I think that like my problem with it was that Portal by design was supposed to be like kind of a very intimate game. It wasn't supposed to be like this big epic thing. It was supposed to be like this sort of like just a game about the intellect and tight spaces and small things, and it was a small game, and it was very charming, and just that was it. You know what I mean? It was very thin. But the second game, they decided to make it, whoa, hey, buddy, forgot about you. Hold
Doesn't
on.
make him feel any better.
I gotta actually think about this. Hold on. Ah, whoa, hey, okay. There we go. All right. Okay, I feel better. Whereas anyway, the second game, the second Portal, it just kind of went. For one thing, it was just too long. Like by the time I had gotten to the last area where you were doing like all of Wheatley's test chambers, like I just didn't care anymore.
See, and I would agree. Like they should not have. Like Wheatley should have had like 1 or 2 test chambers. It should not have been like another 17.
Yeah, and
because they should have been like I found these couple of test chambers to use against you.
Yeah, and
not 20 or so.
And I think that a big problem for me for the whole game overall was just that there were a lot of areas where it was less like actual puzzles, because like at its core the first game was still a puzzle game. Every single area was how do you deal with this particular set of circumstances.
Yeah.
Whereas the second game there were a lot of really long stretches of just huge open areas, and it was just like find the one single wall that you can put a portal onto and advance that way.
Yeah, and a lot of that was done because they added more dialogue with Gladys and listening to Cave Johnson. So they had to create these mechanisms for you to have time to listen to those.
That is one super huge positive about Portal 2 though, Cave Johnson.
Yes. That's the one thing. Like, it's not as intimate as the first Portal, but there's a story.
Yeah.
They trade off a little.
But I think I still kind of like, I mean, this might be hypocritical for me talking about how you need a game with good gameplay and good story a minute ago. But I think I kind of like I really like for my stories and my games to be really streamlined, and I like for there to be a little tiny bit of I like for there to be nuance.
Yeah.
And I like for there to be subtlety and all that stuff. And I feel like the first game was pretty much perfect at all of it. It gave you everything that you needed to be invested in everything, and it also left just enough open to the imagination to make you talk about it and wonder some more. Whereas the second game, I feel like, was not as open-ended, and so it was just a lot more like, here's a story, okay. Yeah. And it just kind of went through.
One thing I'll go is, if someone played Portal 2 first, I think they would like that one most.
Yeah.
Whichever one you play first, I think. Because so many of the puzzles are just reused. Like in 2, a lot of the early test chambers, when you're like, oh, how did I solve that? Oh, it's the same as test chamber 12.
Yeah.
And it's because they have to do it that way, because a lot of those it's like building. So for new gamers, they still have to teach them the sequential steps of logic.
Yeah, and also there were various mechanics and things like that were in the second game that aren't in the first one. So if you play the second game first and you go to the first one, it really is just going to feel like a downgrade. It's going to be like, where are the gels?
One thing that I think is a testament to liking 1 more than 2 also is that the new things they added, like the gels and then the vortexes, weren't as fun as the things they had in the first one.
Yeah. It was. They were neat. They were.
But they weren't as viscerally fun as flinging yourself across the room.
Yeah, they didn't have the same type of catharsis that the first game had.
So I think that's definitely something that I think as an all-around game for someone who's never played either, 2 is probably better. But for that, I played 1 already.
Yeah.
You're almost locked into this is more enjoyable.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Because I'm right there with you. I like 2, but 1 is something special to me.
Yeah,
it's definitely my top 10 list of video games.
I would definitely agree with that.
And kind of like what I was saying with Time Shift is, I think for them to do Portal 3, ironically, I think they would have to add something like time-based puzzles. Because I think they've already tapped out the what they've dealt with.
I would be okay with, like, when you say time-based puzzles, like, how do you mean? Are you talking about, like, time travel mechanics? The things that you were saying in Time Splitters or whatever? Time Shift, I'm sorry.
Well, possibly, like, you could find an add-on to the portal gun that would let you, like, reverse time or something.
Yeah.
Or you could just have something where you use portals to travel back in time and make changes to the room. Like, oh, I went back in time and I planted
Yeah.
that tree, and then
Yeah.
that broke a hole in the roof.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. They've kind of done. Have you heard of a game called the Talos Principle?
You've mentioned it briefly, but
It's another like first person puzzle game, but it's got its own sort of like weird mechanics. It's a neat game. It's very like philosophical. It's like obviously like based on like biblical writings and that kind of thing, and there's a lot of like underlying religious commentary and all that, and that's cool. But I got lost on the the game lost me when they introduced a mechanic where you had to record yourself like doing specific things, and then you would play that back, and then the recording of you would carry out those same actions, and it led to you having to like multitask in like really weird ways, and it was not intuitive, and I just did not like it.
yeah, that sounds kind of forced. So they definitely have to avoid anything like that.
Yeah.
I'm thinking more in Oracle of Ages for Zelda. You do a lot of traveling back and forth in time, and you do things like you dig a hole. Like you dig a hole in the past, and then someone planted a tree in that hole in the future, something like that.
Right.
But yeah, overall, I think there's potential for a Portal 3, but I'm not gonna be heartbroken if they never make it.
I don't think they're gonna. I don't think they're gonna do it. Did you hear that Valve actually recently released the plot synopsis for Half-Life 3?
No.
You know what that means, right? Like they're not gonna make it.
No.
Like they wouldn't give away the whole story and then just be like, and it's due for release in 3 years. You know what I mean? Like no.
Yeah.
That means that they just have no. Plans
Yeah, they're not gonna
do
make
it.
the game, but they're tired of people complaining. They don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was pretty much it. And on that, actually, we are coming up on an hour.
Oh wow.
I know, right? This has been going by like super quickly, so we might need to do a second part to this. We might play something other than Doom.
Well, do you want to just continue and we'll split the video?
We will discuss that off recording.
Right there with you, Chris.
So tell you what, for now we are going to end this. Thank you everybody for watching. If you'd like to see more videos of Gary and I just talking about nerdy stuff and having a good time and doing that kind of thing, go ahead and throw this a like and subscribe to my channel. You can see me just talking about painting miniatures and doing other stuff. Well, yeah, hope to see you again. Thank you again for watching. I'm Chris.
I'm Gary.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.